There we go. There's our meeting. So welcome everybody to our February Ready Northwest Eugene meeting. We are neighbors up in the Northwest of Eugene area that meet monthly to kind of talk about emergency preparedness and just keep that conversation going. Tonight, we have some really exciting topics. We're going to be hearing from some different neighbors from all over the town, from different neighborhoods, talking about how they're preparing with their immediate neighbors. But first, maybe we could go around and do some introductions quickly. So maybe share your name, what area of town you live in, and then if you have anything specific that you're interested in learning. And JD, we got your introduction here a few minutes ago. And up first, I see Carly on the list. Carly and Mitchell, you want to kick us off? Just name and what part of town you're in for introductions.
Yeah, so my name is Mitchell. I live on River Road up at Mary Lane. And
I'm Carly, and I live at 9th between Chambers and Grant, which is, I forget what they're calling us.
Far west.
Far west,
yeah.
That's what they call us, yeah. We should be our own thing, but we're not.
We're glad to have you here.
Thanks.
Charles, I see you up next.
Yes, I'm Charles C. I live on Norman Avenue in the River Road neighborhood.
Thank you. Lynn?
Lynn Woodrich. I live on Burnson Road in the Bethel neighborhood, and I'm the co-chair of the Active Bethel Community.
Matt, I see you next.
Matt Albertson, Maxwell Road, obviously a ham radio operator, given my title there. Occasional planner, go box builder, woodworker, garage tinkerer, generalistic store in there.
Awesome, thanks for being here. Misty?
Hello, Misty Frost. I live off of Corliss Lane in the River Road community, and I'm on the board of directors for River Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Jan? You're on mute, Jan.
Yeah, nice to see everybody. Wow. I'm Jan Spencer, and I live in River Road neighborhood.
Thank you. Joel?
Yes, I'm Joel Robe. I live on Robbie Street in the Santa Clara neighborhood.
Megan?
Megan Temple. I live in the Whitaker.
Jerry?
Yeah, I'm Jerry Brown, and I live in Santa Clara, and I'm here mainly for the emergency communications part of what we're doing.
Awesome. Fred?
Hi, I live in the River Road area, just upstream of the sewage treatment plant near the bike trails.
Awesome. Deb, I see you up next.
Deb Jones. I live in Friendly neighborhood. I've been on our Ready Friendly team for a while.
Thanks for being here tonight. Ed Farron.
Ed Farron, and I live on Sugar Pine Circle in the Bethel neighborhood. And we're missing a hell of a State of the Union speech.
Andrew, I see you up next.
Don't worry, YouTube will have coverage of it.
Yes.
Don't worry.
I'm Andrew. I live off River Road near River Road Elementary, and I'm just here for any information that comes my way.
Kate?
I'm Kate Purley, and that is Karen Lawrence, and we're neighbors on Wendover Street in Santa Clara, and I'm the chair of the Santa Clara Community Organization.
Awesome. Craig?
Hi, Craig Cherry. I live in the Friendly neighborhood around 22nd and Friendly. I'm also interested in emergency communications stuff.
Thank you. Tim?
Hi, Tim Ludd. I live at around 25th and Monroe in the Friendly, former board member, and get on the radio on Sundays when possible with the folks.
Awesome. Thea?
I am Thea Bell, also a Friendly area, and on the Friendly board and with Ready Friendly and the radio team. And it's good to see everybody. Oh, I'm here to learn is what works.
Awesome. Wendy?
Hi, I'm Wendy. I live on Sunnyside off River Road. And yeah, I'm here to listen to some ideas on how to, I have lists of things that I'm supposed to be getting ready, but I don't seem to be able to do it. So I guess I'm looking for motivation.
Awesome. I see Catherine up next. All right, we'll come back to Catherine. Robin? All right, how about John? Oh, Robin, we see you.
I'm here. I was having trouble getting off mute. My name's Robin. I live in the River Road area near Maxwell.
Awesome, welcome, Robin. John?
Off River Road and between on Park Terrace near the Northwest Expressway.
Thank you. Teresa?
Hi, I'm Teresa. I live near Barger in the Bethel neighborhood.
Thanks for being here. John Q.
Hi, John Q. I live on Fox Hollow in Southeast.
Right. Janelle?
Hi, I'm Janelle. I'm with the Friendly Area Neighborhood Ready Friendly and just wanting to learn some more information.
Thanks for being here. Erica?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Wendy. I'm just like, I have lists of what I need to have prepared, but I've gotten some stuff prepared, but yeah, I've kind of been lacking motivation. I think it's just kind of overwhelming. Praying for a disaster.
That is definitely true. Catherine, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Catherine Johnson. I'm in the Bethel neighborhood, new to Eugene, and just looking for good information.
Awesome, welcome. All right, I think that is everybody that I saw on the list. JD, I see a raised hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to, in relation to what Wendy was saying, sometimes it's not motivation that I'm lacking, it's actually budget. So one of the things that I would love to get some answers to is when you're putting your emergency prepared kits together or what have you, how do you do so? Like with right now, my income is Social Security. It's not a lot, it's very appreciated, but it's not a lot. And so getting together the kits on a budget is part of my question.
Yeah, great item to talk about. Okay, I am going to post in our chat real quick our email address, which is readynweugene@gmail.com. If anybody wants to get added to our direct email distribution list, you'll get all of our future meeting announcements. We send out maybe 1 to 3 emails a month, which is sharing different events that are happening locally and stuff like that. So feel free to send an email there and we'll get you added to our list. Tonight, our topics are preparing together with our immediate neighbors. So both the City of Eugene, the Lane County Emergency Management Services, and numerous other disaster agencies have told us numerous times that if a major disaster strikes, our immediate neighbors are going to be our first responders. If there is a major overwhelming event that happens, first responders might not be able to get to us. So all of them are recommending that we prepare with our immediate neighbors. And that sentiment applies not only from a big, large emergency, like a major earthquake or huge disaster, a major flood, but also in a little situation. Maybe you fall and break your leg and you can't get to your phone and you just have to yell really loud for your neighbor. Something like that, little scenarios like that we want to keep in mind too. So tonight, our goal is to hear from neighbors around the neighborhood. We have a lot of people here from all over the city of Eugene and Springfield, to talk about what they are doing with their immediate neighbors, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And two of the big programs or methodologies that are out there that we're kind of going to focus on tonight, one of them is the Neighborhood Watch program, and the other one is the Map Your Neighborhood program. Those are two defined programs that government agencies and emergency planning agencies have come up with that will help. They've kind of laid out a structure to help neighbors prepare with their immediate neighbors. So maybe the closest 10 to 20 houses on your street. So we're going to hear what people around the city are doing to really try to reach out to their neighbors, keep the conversation going, and prepare together. So up first tonight, we have Lynn Woodrich, who's going to talk about the Neighborhood Watch program and what's happening over on your neck of the woods.
Hey, well, I'm going to share my screen, and I've never shared a PowerPoint recently, so bear with me just in case I goof up. So hang on. Okay, so I'm going to start the slideshow. Hopefully it works. There we go. Okay, so I chose Mr. Rogers as the neighborhood spokesman here. And the why Neighborhood Watch is what I always hand out first to everyone. And for more than 40 years, the Neighborhood Watch programs have been happening. And it's basically to do with crime reduction, increased sense of personal control, responsibility for security, improved community unity and pride, and productive partnerships with the local law enforcement. And it's really easy to get started. It just takes time. You have to figure out what we did was I just did it for our street, and it just goes down the street. And then there's a little, there's actually two corners that you go around. So it's just, you know, being able to see what's going on your street, and it's a visual kind of thing. There's somebody eating potato chips in the background there. What's going on there? Okay. So anyway, I'm just gonna keep going here. My first, it says something about enabling closed captioning. Can you see that too, or just me?
We cannot, we just see your presentation. So it looks
okay,
good.
Good.
You can X that out if you want.
Oh, good. Thank you so much. See, I knew I'd get some help. Okay. So setting up the first meeting, I just went door to door to all on one side, and then I got my neighbor across the street to do her side of the street, and so we became co-captains. And then we invited Margaret Mazzata, who's our crime prevention specialist for our area, to come to our first meeting. And I just happened to live right across the street from a church, and they're happy to have us there. So if you have a church in your neighborhood, contact them. It's real easy to meet. They have large sanctuary, and or a community center usually costs money, but the churches are usually free. And this was in 2018 when I set it up. So so things changed a little bit with COVID, but it worked real well. Then I made a big sheet with all the addresses on it, and then went door to door. I went door to door on my side, she went on her side, and we filled in all of the names and phone numbers and email addresses on our form. And this is what it looked like. I'm just making sure that you guys don't see everyone, all my neighbors' information, because that would not be private. Anyway, so just a minute. So anyway, we made the address list, we got it complete, and then we had another meeting and we handed out the contact sheets to everyone. So everyone in the neighborhood and everyone that couldn't come, we made sure that they still got a contact sheet. So everyone had everyone's phone number, email address, and we've been able to now contact everyone on our street whenever we saw something strange going on. And then in order to get it started, you have to have the signs on either end of the road. And we have a bike path on the end of our road. So we put a double-sided sign. So we had 3 signs to buy, which made it really good. And we had people, we just did $10 a home, but depending on how many homes you have, I have another slide here that shows about the cost of things, but it's about $60 per sign. But we did $10 a home, and everyone was happy to contribute that. And then we had the posts and the bolts for the sign and the concrete. And so, you know, it all costs. And then I have in here about the radar program, which isn't being done anymore, didn't work. But anyway, we decided to do a Facebook page. And so I set it all up, and then I invited everyone with their email addresses. And so we all had contact with each other. And this is how I put together the invitations. I just put it 4 up on a 8.5 by 11 sheet, trimmed them out, and then we just handed them out. And this is what it looks like, where we send it to the city and show them the location of where we want to put our signs. And the second one shows you that we had it in the public area instead of on the, or we had it in the city area, and they didn't allow that. So we had to move it over into the area that was next to the speed sign because they don't allow that. So you have to have it in somebody's yard, and that works great. And then we determined the cost per home, like we just talked about. And this is showing you that we had the warning signs are $60.90 each, and the clings, we ended up getting 2 per home. And so we ordered, I think we ordered 4 packages. So that was like $66. And then the Facebook page, we just took a big picture on our first meeting. So everyone that was at the meeting is on there, and you can see how big the sign is. Great big thing, 18 by 24. And then only our neighbors post on here. So the last one was somebody built a trailer, a utility trailer, and they couldn't flip it over. So they needed some people to help push it over. It was 400 pounds. So they grabbed a bunch of neighbors to do that. And then we also had somebody setting fires. And so we posted a picture of who to look for. So that worked out really well. And then this just shows about the size, you know, it all fit on an 8.5 by 11 for the contact sheets. And we had different meetings. We had a potluck. It was really fun. And just meeting the neighbors and getting to know everybody. And then I found a template, like a 3-up card stock template where I could print the OK signs. And so it was already a door hanger. So you just popped out the little circle at the top and handed all these out so people could do that. And then the very last slide here, I just put together our whole neighborhood so that we could do the map your neighborhood. And we haven't started that yet because COVID happened. So there you go, but we will. So does anybody have any questions? I sort of went through fast, but.
Yes, I do.
Okay, good, thanks.
Are the signs actually required? I'd never heard that before. I thought they were optional, and I knew the city wouldn't allow them in the parking, so.
Yeah, well, I don't know that it's required, but it's like, how do people know that it's a neighborhood watch if you don't have your signs up? Mm-hmm. And I think it helps. I mean, if a robber's going to come down the road and there's a neighborhood watch sign on both ends of the road, I think he might think twice before, you know, robbing that street. It seems to have worked. We've been really lucky, knock on wood here.
Did that arsonist get caught yet? I saw Joseph Bonavie.
I haven't seen that, but yeah, but we had 2 burnings on our street with arborvitaes. I guess they're quite a target because they burn so fast. So that's something to not plant.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions?
And Lynn, do you have reoccurring meetings with this group, or is it you just kind of reach out as you have something to share?
Well, now that we have a Facebook, and you know, from the very start, we've had the Facebook. So we kind of communicate on the Facebook, but I intend to start doing the Map Your Neighborhood as soon as as the COVID thing. Everyone's still a little bit worried about masking up and meeting indoors. So as soon as it lightens up, hopefully it will be maybe in the spring. Okay, Charlesie.
I'm curious about how the Facebook group works for you, because I've been thinking about that as a place, as an example. What was it, JD raised the question of cost, and it seems like that might be a good forum for talking about different ways to solve problems. Somebody in our neighborhood, I know, instead of buying a lot of packaged freeze-dried foods, which can be pricey, has gone over to storing containers of different products that she can buy at a reduced price. And so just sharing ideas like that with your neighbors can be helpful. And also I could see where people might even want to plan it. There's been some suggestion on our street that people's gardens, maybe we would like to not all have strawberries, you know, so that there would be some variety and choice. And
oh yeah, it works really well. Yeah, I would recommend it. It's really easy to set up, and then you just put the addresses in, and it invites the neighbors, you know. And then if some new person moves in that you don't know, they'll, you know, ask to you know, be a part of it, and you have to figure out if they actually are a neighbor or not. But you can only let them in if they're a neighbor. That's how I do it. I mean, it, you know, so a relative or whatever doesn't work. You can't, you know, you have to actually be a neighbor.
Right.
Yeah.
There are quite a few Neighborhood Watch Facebook group posts or groups around, and so they all work differently. Not all of them are quite as private. I actually joined a couple in this area, and I don't live there. So, you know, if you do join, beware that, you know, read their rules and find out how they do it first. But to start one up, I think it's a great idea. And I had my hand up for another reason. I wanted to ask what kind of ID, or if you wore any ID when you knocked on doors, and how. What was your door opener speech?
Well, I just introduced myself and let them know which house I lived at. And, you know, I mean, I talk to people all the time. So, I mean, I'm not at all shy. So, I mean, if you're shy, maybe that's a problem. But I just went around door to door, and so did my neighbor across the street. She's not shy either. So, so we just headed down our side of the street, and we knew several of our neighbors already, but I met all of them, and it was just really fun to have conversations with them and have them feel like they can contact me for any reason, which don't really bother me. I mean, I never have had anyone bother me, but I've always had people help me, you know, when people bring cookies at Christmas, and I mean, it's, you know, it's all kinds of nice things that happen. They'll, you know, put flowers on the doorstep. And I mean, it's a really nice neighborhood. And I think it becomes nice when you put yourself out there and want to get to know people. I guess I'm the Mr. Rogers of my neighborhood.
I love it.
Any more questions? I know we need to move on.
Awesome. Thank you, Lynn.
I'm just going to say one thing is that if anyone wants to get a neighborhood watch together and they are feeling insecure about it, I'm happy to help. So just let me know. And I'll put my email address in the chat, and just let me know. I'm happy to get anyone's neighborhood watch going.
Thank you, Lynn. That's a very nice offer. All right. So two things that stood out that I wanted to share before we move on to Megan and Deb, who are going to speak with us tonight. One of them is the goal of these programs is to get organized with your neighbors. But I know organization and such a formal program can be kind of a deterrent for some people to go to that level, to you know, have paperwork printed out and have documentation and stuff about it. So we want everybody to take away what works for them. the things that everybody is sharing tonight won't necessarily work for everybody. You have to make it fit your own style and your own community and your own immediate neighbors. So, you know, pick and choose things that work for you and that you're willing to do. So start somewhere, start small. Just because everybody else or other people have these programs established or networks established, you just got to start with one neighbor, just starting that conversation. So I wanted to just remind everybody, don't be alarmed or scared away by any of these programs. They're the aspiration, not necessarily where you have to start. Okay, up next, Megan, are you ready for us?
Sure, I can share.
Awesome.
I'm Megan Kempel. I live in the Whitaker neighborhood. And I got really excited about and started engaging in the Map Your Neighborhood process. For those of you who aren't familiar with the process, I've done a little orientation, I think maybe with this group in the past. And the process is somewhat similar actually to the process that Lynn described, but it's focused on emergency preparedness specifically. And it involves gathering together with your neighbors with a resource, a toolkit, a workbook basically, that you complete together as a group, where you review, I believe there are 9 steps that we should take as neighbors in the case of disaster. And the first few have to do with taking care of yourself, checking to make sure things are, your family's safe and such. And then going outwardly to your neighbors and checking on your neighbors. There's a neighborhood meeting spot and a neighborhood care center where people can go if they've been injured. And there's a process for walking house to house to check on neighbors to make sure they're okay, and a process for determining whether people are okay or not. One of the most useful tools in the workbook, in my experience, is the page that lists all of the people in the neighborhood, what house they live in, what their names are, what their phone numbers are, maybe what their email addresses are if you want to, and what skills and equipment they have that they are willing to make available to others. And that could be a chainsaw, it could be a skill like crisis management or childcare or medical support, nursing, for example. So we end up with a visual map of where people live, what their names are, and what they have available to share. And the process is totally optional for anyone to participate in, and any information we share is totally voluntary. And I found the process, in terms of what worked, I found the process of getting to know my own neighbors that way, similarly to Lynn, extremely valuable. In fact, somewhat life-changing for me in terms of how I feel on my street. We are already a very well-connected street, and that was true for Lynn. So that's one thing I want to note. I think I heard Lynn say that as well, that she kind of knew neighbors, but she got to know more. We're a pretty well-connected street already. And so I don't want to extrapolate that my experience could work for a neighborhood where people aren't as, maybe houses aren't as close together, or people aren't as open to connecting. But my neighbors really were, and that was what worked for us, was that I have everyone who participated, which was more than half of my 2 blocks, or 1 block both sides. I live on Cedar Street, which is a little 1 block long street over by First and Adams in the Whitaker, by the Tall Tree Park at Sledden Park. And so that process worked really well. And we have contact information that we use for all of those kinds of reasons that Lynn was talking about. If something's of concern, I know to pick up the phone to call, I know how to reach that person. And I used my resources after COVID, which I would consider a crisis situation, where I felt comfortable and empowered to check on neighbors to make sure they had food, for example, because some people weren't going out, people weren't able to work, some people weren't able to work. So just checking on neighbors a little bit that way. So that was valuable. And then I found it so valuable that I wanted to offer the training to neighbors in the Whitaker. And I did a whole bunch of outreach on Facebook and email and got a list of people interested in disaster preparedness in the Whitaker and did a bunch of outreach and did trainings for neighbors to help them go through the same process on their streets. And I think I did maybe 2 or 3 trainings, and I probably trained, maybe 10 or 12 people. And what didn't work is that none of them, as far as I know, have mapped their neighborhoods. One, that's not true. One couple did that with an apartment building in our neighborhood, and it can work in an apartment building setting as well. But otherwise, we had maybe 6 months after the trainings, and then COVID hit, and people didn't feel comfortable gathering together in homes, and people's priorities shifted as well. And since then, but I think it may have even been a year before COVID that people weren't really following up. And I think it's just the way that our lives get busy. And if we don't have a deadline, we just maybe don't always prioritize things. So I would reach out and say, hey, have you mapped your neighborhood yet? And people would say, oh, I mean to, but I haven't. Thank you so much for the reminder. And then, I do the same thing 3 months later. And thank you. So, sorry, darn, no. And also people move or their lives change. So the what's worked, or what's the only trick that I have come up with, well, 2 things. We were also doing annual practice runs where we would get together and practice doing the things in our workbook, basically gathering and checking on people. And we also, I'm trying to think, I shifted over to the city's, I'm a CERT, a community emergency response team member. And I shifted over to what the city is encouraging more right now, which is disaster assessment teams, where there's an exercise where we walk the neighborhood checking on houses and reporting up using communications tools. And so we've done that. I've had a couple of those, and I've had just 2 or 3 people in the Whitaker join me for those exercises. And the thing that I have come up with as a potential tool is similar to Lynn's. I feel like it's actually not that important that a neighbor person facilitates their own Map Your Neighborhood, where they lead their neighbors through the whole process. I think it's more important that those people all get together and get to know each other. And I think that I, for example, which would not be very difficult for me, could just show up on a whatever evening that they decide they want to do this and lead people through the whole process. And I think that may be one of the big barriers. People are like, oh, it's been 3 years. I forgot what you trained us on, how to do this. It's pretty easy. And so having somebody do it for you, and then you'd get to connect with your neighbors and have all the resources, just have a facilitator. So that's I don't know yet if it works because I haven't offered. That's not true. There's been several times when I've said, I can do it for you, but I can say, I can do it for you. I'd like to try to keep that to the Whitaker, but I do it outside of the Whitaker a little bit too, if needed. So it would mean finding neighbors that want to do this and picking a day and time. And there's flyers that describe it. It's like a flyer template. And Kate asked, how are there paper copies? And I could get up in a minute and go just check, but I think I've got most of the stash for the city. I think, and I think I've got 20, but I might have given them actually to people in the last year or so. So I can check. That's it.
Lynn?
Well, I think, Ed, weren't you trying to find out if they were going to do a new revised Map Your Neighborhood book. Do you know anything more about that?
No, yeah, I just looked just before this meeting. I went on the state emergency management website and looked for a new Map Your Neighborhood book, and there's not one. It may be, it looks, yeah, unless they might have just changed the text a little bit in the old one, but there's not like a new complete revision that I could find. So anyway, it should have been out last fall. So I think maybe it just didn't happen. They have some nice coloring comic books about different disasters, you know, tsunamis and earthquakes and stuff. But anyway, no Map Your Neighborhood.
Nice. That's showing examples.
Jerry, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell everybody that the Bi-Mart has a special on FRS radios, and during a disaster, trying to get to your neighborhood ham would be best on an FRS radio. And I think they were $39.95 for 2 of them for a pair. So take a look at that if you don't have FRS radios.
And the radios, so Megan, the disaster assessment teams or damage assessment teams that the program that the city is kind of rolling out, they're starting with those FRS radios, right? That's kind of one of the basics. So people are going to search their street and then communicate with the radios.
Yep.
And there was a question in the chat from Robin. Thanks, Matt. What does it mean to map your neighborhood?
Robin, that's just the process that I described, where neighbors get together and they go through a workbook together, which includes 9 steps that neighbors should do first, taking care of themselves and then getting out, maybe turning off natural gas if they have it, and then getting out a little further to check on their neighbors. And that it includes guidance for checking on your neighbors, and it includes doing that inventory that I described, where we identify, get contact information for our neighbors, as well as the skills and resources or tools that they have available that they're willing to share with others.
Thea?
Deb can probably answer this better, but it's been our understanding that Oregon is moving towards the Be 2 Weeks Ready campaign and following Washington that way. And we heard recently that they expect to have new materials out by fall of this year. We also heard that last year and maybe the year before, but anyway, that's our latest. I'll leave the rest up to Deb. Thank you.
There were some questions in the chat too. What type of radio is that? So Lynn was holding up an FRS radio, and that's what Jerry was mentioning was on sale at Bi-Mart as well. But that's anybody can access that. You don't have to have a license for FRS radios. And someone else asked the question, how do you get in touch with the radio people? So I don't think there's an established network of FRS radio users. I know the city is working on identifying a network of our ham radio and GMRS operators. Thank you, Jerry. We have the eugenemcom.org website that outlines that radio communications plan. But I don't think there's like a documented network of people who have FRS radios. So I think the goal is to be talking to your neighbors to find out if they have them, encouraging them to get them, try to talk to people in the larger area. I think eventually the goal is to reach out and establish a network so that you can talk, pass the messages up to the ham radio users. And I'm sure Thea and Jerry can explain that a little better.
Okay, you also, somebody said something about radios on Saturdays or Sundays or something. What was that?
Friendly neighborhood thing. Thea can probably fill you in.
Yeah, Thea?
We might need a different topic for that, but Friendly followed Southeast Neighbors model of having radio practices on second Sundays at 6 or 7 p.m. And so once a month, we have a monthly radio team exercise where we check in and do different things. But ours, I was trying to type into chat that each neighborhood or area starts their own little team. It just grows organically right now. And you just get 2 people, 3 people together like we did in Friendly and just start finding others and then figuring out how you want to network and how you want to practice. And it can be a lot of fun.
And I have a comment here.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
So if you go to eugenemcom.net and you download their document, there is a well-defined protocol about who to call on what channels from your neighborhood. So for each neighborhood, it goes to from the local people through FRS. They then talk to the neighborhood ham operator, who talks to the district ham operator, who talks to the Eugene Operations Center. So that is the proper, there is a well-defined protocol is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, doing a quick time check. I want to make sure we get to talk to Deb, who's with us here tonight from the Friendly area. And then at the end, we can come back with any questions that are left over. Deb, are you ready for us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So thanks, Megan, for giving an overview of Map Your Neighborhood. And I related completely with every single thing you said regarding what works and what doesn't work. I personally have had similar experience, and I think neighborhood-wide, we would have that bigger view that you have. So let's see, I've been in Friendly for about 10 years, and I served on the Neighborhood Association board for 7. Pretty early on in that, Carlos Barrera, who was one of our board members, he was a big promoter of Map Your Neighborhood. And I thought, well, gosh, I'm a board member. I should lead by example and do this myself. So that's how I got doing it for my block. And it was absolutely a great opportunity to meet absolutely all of my neighbors. And social events are very popular on our block as far as providing an opportunity for people to come together. What I've seen over the years, being on my block now, that just having that bigger connection with neighbors is a chance for us to build our knowledge on emergency preparedness, even if it's at a very informal level. I'll hear neighbors talking about their battery backups and maybe some food stashes that they have. And after we had that big ice storm, what was that, 5 years ago or so now, a lot of people on our block lost power, and my husband and I hosted a power back on party at our house after everybody's power was on. And I'm thinking this is just social relief. Let's all decompress a little from a difficult week. But then one of our neighbors said, well, hey, are we gonna debrief? And are we gonna talk about how we all did together so that we can keep doing better when these things happen? So that was very reassuring to me, just to hear that, or realize that people were into it, into the togetherness. We're all neighbors together, helping each other out through these tough times. Other things that work in my group, absolutely, the more effort you put into it, the more you get out of it. These groups don't just form spontaneously. You got to keep up on it. And I have found that almost everybody in my group wants to stay in the loop of information, even if they never come to events and make it clear that they don't want to. They just keep track by email. We're just talking out on the street. As far as what doesn't work in my own group, sometimes just keeping up with new neighbors can take effort, or it's an easy way for me to be lazy. Like, oh, I have to walk up the hill there and meet those new folks. Also, I'm in a part of town with older, smaller homes, and if we want to meet inside, there are only a couple of options where somebody's inside room would be big enough for us to gather. And really, I have no idea who keeps track of our contact list that I distribute. I'm sure some people do, but a frequent request I get from a neighbor is, oh, can you resend that list to me? I've lost it. But at least I know they're thinking about it. So that's me on my own group, my own block. And then as far as the whole neighbor-wide effort goes, about 5 years ago, our board got an influx of energetic new board members, and they came up with a plan of how to ramp up Map Your Neighborhood across the whole designated area of Friendly. And we have a population of around 7,000 people, 3,600 street addresses. And that plan started off with divvying up the whole neighborhood into 10 zones. And then the goal became, let's get 10 groups formed in each zone. So we would have an initial goal of making 100 Map Your Neighborhood groups. So that became like a template for how to move forward. And that really helped the group get going. We also had a big kickoff event at a school gym and had about 100 people attend. Lots of people signed up for information. Few people did Map Your Neighborhood groups, but it was still a great opportunity for just getting people more aware of the risks and some of the resources out there. We found that what works is just a lot of repetition about what Map Your Neighborhood is. We have a lot of info on our website. We've created maps. Some people, such as myself, are very drawn to maps and those kinds of visuals. And that often brings people over for conversation. As far as what hasn't worked is even, and this really mirrors what Megan was saying, that the whole Map Your Neighborhood program is designed to be really beautifully designed to be do-it-yourself. Here's the workbook, go for it. Self-explanatory, follow the directions. But I found that most people really want a lot of talking, maybe multiple conversations. Let me think about it. Why don't you come and lead it for me? And you certainly get more participation if you can just send someone to lead somebody's group for them. But I would say for the vast majority of people, it is not do it yourself, as in here's the booklet, run with it. It's easy to get the low-hanging fruit of people who would do something like this regardless, but I'd say most people need quite a bit of talking. It's kind of a high-touch activity, encouragement, or just say hearing from me or hearing from somebody else. Well, how did it really go for you? And I would describe for me what worked or what didn't work. And really, I have found most people are quite concerned about this. And certainly if they contact us for information, but most people aren't gonna, don't have the wherewithal, time, energy, interest, whatever it takes to do it themselves. So I've had people from a half a mile away from me ask to join my group. I say, well, it's not really practical for various reasons. So we were finding it was easy to get those low-hanging fruit people to do the Map Your Neighborhood program. And then we started creating a map of where those groups fit into the neighborhood. And then it felt harder to get the next tier of people. And for every next few groups, it just took more and more effort. And I would say that one thing that I have heard turns people off is the strict focus on earthquake preparedness. That for a lot of people, it's just, oh, that's something that might happen, probably won't, and it'll be way out in the future. So I think it's easy, regardless of what happened in Turkey this week, it is still easy for people to just say, I'll deal with that when it comes. And another thing that I think makes it hard is, or let me rephrase that. I think a different approach that might get more traction would be to take, if you want to really do it all over your neighborhood or a kind of a bigger geographic area, to proactively divvy up the whole geographic area into blocks. What we did was just tell people, hey, form your own block. We have a lot of dead ends and hills, so there are some natural boundaries for groups. And we know there are lots of blocks have pre-existing social relationships. So we just wanted people to figure out what's going to work on their own block. But we've also heard from people who say, well, what is my group? Or which are the groups that don't have any block leader on them? So it might be easier. You might get a different group of people if you just had it all sorted out. And then your map could say, oh, this block, here's a hole, here's a hole. And it's a little more obvious where people can plug in rather than having to take that extra thinking step of circling what would work for you.
Excuse me, Deb.
Yeah.
I have your map of Friendly's 30 plus MYN groups. Would it be okay to screen share that while you talk a little bit?
You go right ahead, Thea. And
permission
the
from
other,
Jackie.
taking it in the opposite direction, you might also get a whole different group of people if you just made it way more informal. Map Your Neighborhood is very structured and it follows a certain protocol, and you do this, this, and this, and here's your map. But some people might respond more to something way less structured. And I just saw something here in our friendly neighborhood a while back. We had this wonderful fruit tree gleaning project that got organized. It was beautifully organized, where tiers of volunteers who would be in contact with neighbors with extra fruit, and then it just languished due to volunteers to be the middle managers of the whole thing. And then I realized that other people who wanted fruit just started advertising on nextdoor.com, and they got all kinds of very quick responses. So social media provided some very quick informal connections on those sorts of things. So I'm just wondering if there might be other more informal ways forward. Also, the way we approached it, because we were trying to do a lot of things at once and keep track of all these people who signed up and keeping track of where they lived and have we been in contact, what information have we sent to them. We just ended up with a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of separate silos of information. And then we had the whole radio team, and then those even different spreadsheets, different silos of information. So we are pretty data intensive, and that's, to me, it's a challenging point right now where we have to update multiple things if anything changes, say even for one person's contact info. So either we have to simplify, or we just need some real data gurus to come up with an easier system. So just as a final thought, I have come to the view that it's very helpful to have a view of all this, that really the core of it, the 95% of it, is neighbors knowing neighbors and developing longer term relationships. And I think I'm quoting Patience Winningham, who said, hey, don't worry if only 2 people want to attend your training, then that'll just be 2 more people who were prepared. So just work with the willing. And it's all about personal relationships and being to help people the closest at hand. And conversely, I think it's a frustrating view, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment trying to do this work if you take the attitude, everybody should participate, everybody will participate, everyone will have all the gear, all the radios, come to everything and do all these practice things. That just isn't going to happen because people are busy, they have other priorities, and a lot of people just assume the city is going to save them, regardless of what the city might say. So I am happy to take other questions.
Deb, I see Charles' hand.
Yeah, it's not so much of a question as a sort of underscoring of what I heard you just say. We have a Map Your Neighborhood effort on Norman Avenue in River Road, and it's been operational for maybe a year. I'm really not sure of how long. And it started out with a map and people, about 12 different households saying out of 21 that I identified in the area, saying they wanted to participate. And of that, maybe there's a core group of about 6 households that participate. And I loved your statement about work with the willing, because in fact, informally, there's a lot more talking that goes on than when we have meetings. And I see over time that interest has grown and that people informally are sharing information. The structure of the Map Your Neighborhood program is a bit too rigid for the nature of that street all the time, but it was helpful in the very beginning. And what I've found is that messaging network or messaging capabilities and email group communication when there's an emergency happening is very well received. People really respond and step forward when they can see it experientially, how that works, how connecting and communicating works. And pretty soon, I think we will start having an FRS experiment in our area when the weather is better. And it will grow, but it will grow according to what the nature of my street wants, not a prescribed program. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thea, I see you up next.
Yeah, thank you. Deb has been far too modest. She has been our Map Your Neighborhood guru and master nudger for at least 4 years, I think. We also had 2 other people that have since moved away or left the group and who were very active in doing a lot of help and assistance. Several things that we did were holding meetings in person. Our emergency prep team met in person in the old days at Washington Park, and we would have all the materials there, and we would invite people to come down and get their materials and have questions signed or talk, as while other things were going on in that same meeting. And that seemed useful. They knew that where they could get them easily. And then Deb has supported and participated in, we had monthly, I called them Sunday summits of Map Your Neighborhood group leaders on Zoom after COVID started to get together and touch base and report in and how are things going and get ideas and share ideas. And we started out like with, I think, 33 or more. And then by June, when the weather got better, it got down to like 17. So we kind of stopped that over the summer. And we've been talking about getting that going again. Or just reviving it, or meeting in person actually at Washington Park again. But I think, and we also had a Google groups we started for Map Your Neighborhood leaders. But I think we may have been expecting too much from the group leaders. I tried to expand that Google group email forum to anybody, and also to encourage co-leaders. We have several groups. We found co-leaders has been helpful. Where it doesn't all fall on one person. Like Lynn said, you know, you can go on both sides of the street to hand out your flyers and that. And Deb's done a tremendous amount of outreach through MailChimps, through her Ready Friendly e-news, through Friendly Flyer. She's also the newsletter editor. So she's been putting that map in there and encouraging people to join. And I think COVID really stalled us mostly. I know it's kind of stalled me because I didn't get my group started until August of 2020 when I had to go out in 90-degree weather. I didn't have to, but I chose. I waited that long and then I didn't even want to knock on doors. I'd already been knocking on doors all month for the census and some even on my own street. So I just did flyers and tucked them under their doormat and told them what it was all about and who I was and welcomed them to the email group if they wanted to join. And I did get a lot of responses that way. And basically that's where we've been. We've had people move in and out of our neighborhood, and I became mobility challenged. We're walking up steps and even going up and down the street was a challenge. So I'm a digital warrior. That's my preference for how to reach people, if you hadn't noticed. And I was hoping that we would start a next door neighborhood watch or map your neighborhood little group. You can do that privately on Nextdoor because a lot of people don't like Facebook. So I thought that might be an alternative. I had noticed a lot of there's supposed to be like 37 people, 3,700 individuals in the Friendly area that are on Nextdoor. Whether they check it very often or not, I don't know. But that seems to me a really good way to reach people. And it's been a good outreach for us and Friendly for other things as well. So I just wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to Deb. Put her on the spot for all she's done. And we're transitioning to be 2 weeks ready ourselves. And we also thought about changing the MYN to meet your neighbor. If they're gonna dissolve map your neighborhood, maybe we could start using that for the initials. And that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just shared that Be 2 Weeks Ready link from the state of Oregon. There was a question in the chat about why that program worked, if it was more group focused or more individual efforts. And I think the 2 Weeks Ready program focuses a little bit more on individual preparedness at home and making sure that you have the supplies that you need, but also talking with planning with your household. I think that circles back to one of the comments from the beginning about budget and trying to prepare without a large expendable budget. Talking to your neighbors and talking to your household about a plan is a free thing that you can do. So kids practice stuff in school, they practice fire drills, they practice how to evacuate, but how often do we practice those things at home and talk about them at home? So just talking to your family, talking to your neighbors is a low cost way to prepare as well. I see we're a couple of minutes over time for tonight, so I'm going to wrap us up here for tonight. But if anybody wants to be added or have more questions or more discussion, feel free to reach out at readynweugene@gmail.com. Get you added to our list or connect you to other people that we know in your local area. So I think that concludes our meeting for tonight. So thank you all for attending, and this is awesome conversation. So thank you to our presenters, Deb and Megan and Lynn, everybody's contributions tonight. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.